think we're live. I see data rolling in on OBS. So I think that we are. Let me know if you guys can hear me, where you're listening from on this Saturday, November 8th. Yes, it is the 8th. While I finish, I just have a few more things that we got to do. So this is going to be a user-directed stream. So everything that you guys want to know, we're going to talk about. So hang on a second here. Trying to stay on top of this stuff because I fail at this every single time. So normally, guys, we do our live streams. If you guys have never seen one of these, normally we do our live streams on Sundays. But I have my wife's plague. And she, over the course of the last couple of days, she's gotten worse and worse. She finally went to the doctor, got some antibiotics and stuff like that. She seems to be responding to that well. But my concern is that if I wait till tomorrow to do our weekly live stream, that I will be too ill to do it because I can feel it working in there, and it's not great. Okay. So I fully expect that tomorrow I will be down for the count and be unable to participate in any kind of anything tomorrow. So we're going to do it today. And today's topic is suppressors. So anything that you guys want to ask about suppressors, I'm coming basically with the general direction of going that way, but it's open topic as with everything here. So I'd like to run for about an hour today, so I'm going to go ahead and start a stopwatch on my phone that's a little bit more visible than all the stuff on my screen over here. I mean, I can see it, but it's a really tiny little thing. So we're going to start the thing now and say that we're going to run for about an hour and answer all of your guys' questions. If you guys are thinking about something, if I've got any experience with it, if I've got a different direction that I would push you in, you know, all that sort of stuff. And hopefully we can get you guys some information that you need. And then if we have any good topics, I'm going to add those to my my series that I'm currently working on as far as videos are concerned. So anyway, let's see. We get some stuff. Clear up my desk, and of course, as always, today's live stream is brought to you by First Form. We have a giveaway for First Form today. 4 different types of protein bars, 4 different types of their meat sticks. Value pack to 1 winner. I will ship it out to you. You have to email me. The last couple people have not emailed me who won. So what am I to do? When it's announced who wins, you have to actually get in contact with me. Now, that said, today's contest for the value pack is best Mom Donnie joke. We'll call it best Mom Donnie joke. That one's a low-hanging fruit. Best comment about Mom Donnie, and I'm sure that you guys will be ripping and roaring on that one. You guys did a really good job last week. Really good job last week. So anyway, let's see. We've got a couple questions already to start us off with. Tosh says, this is great timing. Made my Silencer Shop account yesterday, doing fingerprints on Monday. So the only thing I will add to that is the benefit there for anybody who doesn't understand that is that Silencer Shop kiosks have a fingerprint reader in them, so you can generate yourself a digital fingerprint profile so that you can use that in the future. So that is a really big thing. That's been in existence for at least a decade at this point in time. So that said, if you guys don't want to use the Silencer Shop kiosk to do that, then if you have a digital fingerprint file, then you can use that on eForms. Or if you want to just submit the paper fingerprint cards, you can do those yourself. And what happens is eForms generates you a letter that they send to your email, auto-generated from the system. You take that letter, it's just a cover letter, you put it into an envelope with your 2 fingerprint cards, and you send it off to the... I don't know if they all go to the same place, or if there's different processing centers. Mine have always gone to the same place, but I don't know if that's accurate, because mine have always gone to West Virginia, but I don't know that everybody's go to West Virginia. So that's actually something that I don't know. But anyway, doesn't matter. So yes, definitely a good way to do it. I am a fan of Silencer Shop. Used to work with them quite a bit, but that is a good way to do it if you don't have access to a digital fingerprint file. Let's see. Are tilting barrels or rigid barrel better hosts? Well, it depends on what you're talking about. If you're talking about like max suppression and you're trying to do like something like a pistol in a chassis or something like that, then they are basically... Fixed barrels allow you to go all the way up. You can put a Bowers 375 on the end of your fixed barrel pistol, and you're off to the races. It doesn't matter. If you're not really looking to do something like that, then I would say that most of the cans that you're going to get come with some kind of Nielsen device. And if you don't know what a Nielsen device or a linear or inertial decoupler is, then you can find our video on that thing as well. One thing I forgot to mention is that, again, this live stream is sponsored by First Form. I have a link pinned in the pinned comment, and if you guys use that link, then it tells them that I sent you, and if you ever buy anything there, then it redirects my direction. So thank you very much for that. So back to the tilting breech thing. So most of the cans that you're going to buy for pistols come with a linear inertial decoupler of some kind, or at least the most reputable brands will. Now, if the can is built specifically for like a 357 lever gun or something like that, or a 4570 lever gun, then it might not. And they might have those additional things that you can add to it. It just really depends on which device that you're looking at shopping for and what you're actually after. But if you're looking for a pistol can, like the Rugged Obsidian or something like that, that thing's going to come with a piston. Now, 22 is a little bit different because a lot of 22 pistols aren't tilting breech actions. And I would suggest that you actually go with, like, I use a Volquartsen Scorpion, but a Ruger Mark Series is a fantastic 22 host. And actually, a 22 pistol is better than a 22 rifle, because most of the time, when you're using a 22 pistol, you've got a shorter barrel, and that shorter barrel ends up resulting in lower velocities. And even your normal blasting ammo is usually going to be right at that 1050 limit. And if you're shooting it out of a rifle, then it's typically going to go over the sound barrier, versus like if you were to use it in a pistol, then usually it stays safely under. Of course, that has to do with the temperature and environmental conditions outside. So if I buy a suppressor January 2nd and the court cases win that are saying that it is an illegal registration, now that the fee is gone, do I then have legal recourse to sue for damages? You could argue You could argue that, but you would need an attorney to do that. So, I mean, here's the thing. You can sue for anything at any point in time. The question is if you're going to win or not. And that's going to be a question for an actual attorney. I am not one. Good question, though. Good question, though. So what is that? 2 things today that I didn't know the answer of. So there you go. Is it better to get a small 9mm can or a bigger one? I suggest that you get one that has dual functionality. So one that has a K configuration, one has a long configuration. So I keep going back to it, but a really good example is the Rugged Obsidian. Also the Griffin Optimus, really good example of cans that can transform and do different things. So it really depends on what it is that you're trying to do. If you're trying to use a 9mm can because your 7.62 gun is like a Soviet weapon and doesn't have a good barrel that is that's got and most of them don't have a shoulder on the barrel to index your can, then you might consider getting like a can that can morph into a K configuration, because the longer the can is, the greater the chance of a baffle strike. You just have to, it's simple math, you know, change the angle like half of a degree. And if your can's 6 inches long, well, that's not a big deal. But if it's 20 inches long, well, that's a big deal. Because you're going to extrapolate that angle out over the distance of the can, right? So any deviation is going to be exacerbated as you get towards the end of the can. Let's see. I'm anxiously awaiting a local shop to get their manufacturing license approved so I can buy one from them. Well, if they're going to manufacture their own, then that's cool. But you don't, if your local shop has a dealer's license, then that's good enough. If they're not manufacturing their own. Which I don't understand why anybody doesn't get a manufacturing license these days, because it's actually cheaper to get a manufacturer's license than it is to get a dealer's license. But usually folks that are buying the dealer's license, well, excuse me, usually folks that are buying the manufacturer's license, the 07, are also getting their special occupation tax stamp. So it works itself out. There's a knock at my door, and my brother asks, "Who is it?" It's Mom, Donnie. That's okay. I don't know if that one will win today, but you know, preferential treatment is given to Livestream. The last 3 winners have been on the Livestream comments, so there's that. So for those of you who are just now tuning in, giveaway going on with First Form, and the best Mom Donnie comment wins. Low-hanging fruit. Tosh says, I'm waiting to buy a 22 9mm 30 cal can or 5.56 can, primarily for coyote hunting, but for numerous states. I'm looking at Dead Air. I'm looking at the Dead Air X. I've read 30 cal cans can do almost as good as 5.56. That is accurate. In fact, for the longest time, currently, if you were to buy a can today, I would tell you that if you got to pay the tax stamp and you only want one can, usually people go towards a 30 caliber can. Usually the top 2 are 30 caliber cans and 22 cans. 22 cans because they're pretty cheap and people want to like dip their toes in. Don't get me wrong, you can buy a premium 22 can. There are lots of them out there that are very nice. And you typically need those when you go up into the 5.7 class. But if you're going up into 5.7, I usually tell people to just go ahead and buy a 5.56 can. A 5.56 can is better at doing 5.56 than a 30 caliber can is, but a 30 caliber can do way more stuff. Does that matter in 2026? Well, you're not paying an extra $200 for each item. You're just suffering through the paperwork that you were going to do anyway, which is unconstitutional. Just make sure that I add that in there. I don't agree with any of this, but since you're not paying the extra $200 for every item, then the 5.56 can becomes a little bit more viable. And if you're going to get a can, use it on your 5.56 rifle, and that's pretty much all it's ever going to be used on, go ahead and get yourself a dedicated 5.56 can. Will you, hang on, make sure I got the, in the question is, will you actually ruin a 5.56 can by shooting 22 through it? No, you will not. That comes from the concept that 22 is corrosive. And what is corrosive with 22 ammo is typically the primer. It's very simple to clean corrosive salts out of anything. And that is that you take hot water and run it through the device. So you got a utility sink or something like that, or if you're going to use like an ultrasonic cleaner, then that'll do it too. All you need is some hot water. Those salts are very water soluble. I typically like to put a little bit when I'm using like an ultrasonic cleaner. I like to throw some dish soap in there because it can pull some of that other stuff out. But by and large, I don't really clean my 22, or I don't really clean my cans very often. The other thing is that you have to understand that if you're going from 22 to 5.56, typically you're talking about running very hot ammo in relative comparison through those. So it's going to blow a fair amount of those salts out, but there's still going to be some residual in there. Again, run some hot soapy water through it, and it'll be fine. You can take a 5-gallon bucket, fill it up in your sink, pour a little dish soap in there, let it soak for 5 minutes, take it out, shake it about again, and all those corrosive salts are out of it. So 22 can is not going to hurt your 5.56 can anyway. And that's also very dependent on the material. If you're talking about like a titanium can, then you don't need to do any of that anyway. So sorry, I actually missed that one on the first go around. So have you seen the new can from PSA or High Point? I have seen the new High Point can. I have a guy at High Point that I'm already in talks with about getting it, and I don't work with Palmetto State Armory, so there's that. So I hope to get the High Point can in, as well as the High Point AR-15, but I'm told that the High Point AR-15 is basically completely unobtainium, so we may never actually get one of those. I don't know, but I really do want one. I want to test it out and see what they're doing. I've shot it at an industry range day, and I thought it was great. I would like a recommendation on the best can to use on my HK SP5 and my Beretta 92 FS. A buy once, cry once kind of can. Well, those are two different guns, and I would have different recommendations based on those two types of two types of guns. Handgun is considerably different than an SP5. So the SP5 allows you to use heavier cans because it's a fixed barrel gun. And there's a misconception that the 92 FS doesn't need a pistol booster. It still has, if you look at how it works, the barrel still moves in there, and it can still cause some hiccups without. You can get away with it a little bit easier, but you still need a pistol booster, or at least I would recommend a pistol booster for your 92. So I would say that there's no buy once, cry once for that scenario. Sorry. So it also depends on what you're going to be running out of that. If you're going to be if you want to go max suppression, then and you're not worried about weight, then I tell people to go like the Bowers cans with the something like an SP5. If you're looking for something that's a little bit lighter weight but still has really good suppression, but you're willing to fork out some money, then I tell people to go for like AB suppressors. If you're looking for something for your 92, then I'm still saying that you want something like the Griffin product or the Obsidian the Griffin product or the Rugged product. All right, so this says noob question. Based on what you just said about mounting angle, does one need to be careful about mounting suppressors and knocking them against stuff? No, typically not. Typically not. You can, I mean, there are stories of dudes like, this might be a little bit dark, but I've got plenty of friends that use them in the military, and they've literally smashed people in the face with them, and they still hold zero. So that's not really a thing. As long as you're using an American concept firearm. So this might take me a second to explain. So when we're talking about a typical like fixed barrel gun, think like your AR-15 or your handgun or whatever. Usually there is a shoulder on your barrel, and the mount threads down, and then it sits against that precision machine shoulder that was done on the lathe when they profiled the barrel down, or the barrel machine when they profiled it down, right? And that is still on the mandrel, so it's concentric with the bore, right? That gives you a nice flat surface that is bigger than the precision machine surface of the mount. And they basically, precision machine plus precision machine equals very little tolerance between the two, right? So you still need to check the alignment on that to make sure there isn't something screwed up there, like there's some gunk in the threads that's causing it to like misalign or whatever. The difference is when we go to like the Soviet concept, the barrel is the same profile as the thread. So basically that's done because it's got to make it through the gas block. So they don't have a lot of extra OD to be able to turn it down into a shoulder. So cans on Soviet guns index over the barrel, and they index not to a shoulder, but on the tiny little radius that is the thickness of the barrel. So it goes over the barrel, and then whatever is inside that mount, whether it's precision machined or not, sometimes they're not built that way. Sometimes that is a frivolous dimension that isn't paid attention to on the inside. Or there's some other geometry in there because there's some special features in there. The Stealth Projects, for instance, one that comes to mind. They had this one that had like these different caliber restrictors that could thread into the proximal part of the can, so that you weren't trying to gas down at the end of the muzzle or at the end of the can with an end cap. You were gassing it down at the front. So anyway, so what that means is that if you got a little tiny radius, just the thickness of the barrel, and you're trying to put it on a non-precision machined geometry inside the can, well, then you got a lot of this that can happen. That's even, I would say it's even worse because a lot of AKs, for instance, have a gas block or a sight tower that is towards the front, and that sometimes doesn't have enough space there to mount it. And what ends up happening is instead of turning it down tight against the threads, you end up tightening it up against the sight tower, And if you look at those sight towers, they're almost always forward slanted a little bit. So that means that you're tightening against a wedge and you actually end up pushing your can down. That's why you have to have an alignment rod. Have to have an alignment rod. Okay. I'm looking for a 22 suppressor that will work on a long gun and semi-auto pistol. Recommendations. Well, all of the 22 suppressors will work on the long gun, and on semi-automatic pistols, it very much depends on the pistol. So like I said earlier with like the Ruger Mark series, or the one that I use is Volquartz and Scorpion, that's a fixed barrel gun. So you can I go walking with my Volquartz and Scorpion. I take a couple days a week. I take my dog for a walk, and I'll put like a big ass can on the end of it and use it as a handle, because the gun's going to operate regardless, because it doesn't have it's independent. The barrel's independent of the weight of the can. So now, if it's one of those ones that has a tilting breech action, oftentimes 22 cans aren't equipped with any kind of Nielsen device. So in that case, you end up having to go with a light can. And those cans need to be pretty much almost exclusively made out of aluminum. So the one that I would recommend, if you're going for like an all aluminum can with no nothing in it, for those tilting breech 22 guns, I would say that you should go with the Bowers Paradigm. It's an all aluminum can. It's super duper light, and it won't interfere with that whole dynamic. I also did one on the, I did a review earlier this year on the Fletcher Works device, and it has basically one steel baffle, and then the rest of it is aluminum. So, the rest of it's aluminum and titanium. So that one, I didn't try it on a tilt breech action pistol to see if that would work, but I think it's probably pretty close. What grease do you put on the pistol booster? None. No grease whatsoever. It gets all carboned up, and it basically carbons. It's graphite. It's full of graphite. So there's no reason that you need to gunk that up whatsoever. Let's see. PSA equals AAC, and I've used the AAC cans before. They're pretty good, but I don't work with Palmetto State Armory, so it is what it is. I'm donning my little commie. That's good. That's good. For those of you who are just now joining us, the giveaway from First Form today, 4 different types of meat sticks, 4 different types of protein bars. Link listed above tells them I sent you. Best Mondami comment wins today. Do I have any experience with Wolfpack Armory cans? I would love to work with Wolfpack Armory. They're in West Virginia, and they're just across the river, except for every single time I try to work a project with them, their person just like up and like falls off the face of the planet. So I don't know. I've been trying to work with Wolfpack Armory for years. I've seen some of the rifles and stuff like that. I would love to work with those guys, but they have to. I don't chase people. Okay, look, I got too much other stuff to do. If I have to run you down to get something working with you, then I'm just going to find something else to do. Okay. And I've given them more than enough opportunities to do stuff. I'm old school. So the 300 Blackout, I wasn't really interested in. Then I built one with a friend for deer season. I built my own the next day and ordered another barrel to replace it. Yeah. So 300 Blackout is the king of suppression. The cool thing about 300 Blackout is that you can run different grain weights, same zero, and extend your range. So basically what you need to do is you find your fast load, and that fast load you're going to zero at like 50 yards, and then that is going to give you like 350 yards, 400 yards of point of aim, point of impact. All right. We're talking like 125, 110 grain, something like that. And then you can, with a mag change, go to your super suppressed stuff, right? And that's a closer range, but at that point in time, you're using your infrared illuminator to point shoot on stuff. That's what I use for coyotes all the time. So I can go out there at like 2 o'clock in the morning and shoot coyotes. Yeah, so yeah, I realized I did that out of order on that one. So the Wolfpack Armory can, yeah, if you know those guys, you say that you live close to them, tell them to get with me. But I'm done. You know, I've had people try to work that for me, and they just kind of fall off the face of the earth. Have you ever used 3D printed cans? I have several 3D printed cans, but those are direct laser sintered cans. So those are cans that are made of metal. 3D printed plastic cans are junk. So are, for the most part, homemade cans. Your hardware store special stuff, like you file Form 1 and then you get all the parts and put it together, it sucks, right? You're better off just buying it. So 3D printed cans, I have several 3D printed cans that I really like. Do they add an advantage over a traditional can? You might be able to get 1 or 2%, 5% more performance out of a 3D printed can, but the concept of suppressors, for the most part, was perfected about 30 years ago. Okay, we're making small increments here and there, but for the most part, what 3D printing allows manufacturers to do, direct laser sintered 3D printing, it allows them to do things that otherwise would be impossible to do in one piece. So if you've got like a big like honeycomb type monocore that goes inside your can, you can't really do that with traditional manufacturing means. You could, but you got to remember that you have to have an angle of attack for your tool. So that means you got to do it in multiple pieces and then like weld it together type thing. So 3D printing is a great tool when it comes to the direct laser sintered stuff, and you should not shy away from that stuff. Just understand that at this juncture, those are probably still going to be more expensive than a traditional can. Everyone starts with one suppressor multi-guns that typically doesn't survive the first range trip. Best to just embrace the fact that they will each have their own suppressor. Yeah, so that's the I think that Murph says that in reference to the previous question about a bunch of different hosts and stuff like that. I do trade my cans around a lot, but that's because I'm using them for different evals and stuff like that. Like my guns that are my guns with my suppressors on them, those guns, they just basically never move, right? Like my hunting rifle, for instance, has had a whip machine mod 1 on it for 4 years, and it's never moved, right? There's no reason to take that. It has a QD mount on it. There's no reason to ever take it off, basically. Have you tried Whip Machine lately? Just mention that. And I also received word today, or was it yesterday? Maybe it was last night. I don't remember. It's all running together. I received word that we are getting their new device, and the shipping label has been generated, so it should be here pretty soon for eval. Have you ever used one of the Elite Iron Echo Light 22 suppressors? I've not used one of those, but I do have a funny story about Elite Iron. The dude who owns Elite Iron is hilarious. I don't remember his name, but I saw him for the first time at a at SHOT Show there was like a secondary shoot at some place. I forget who was hosting it, whatever. They were one of the people on the range. And so they had this machine gun and they were basically burning these cans down. They were glowing hot. And this dude is like handing the rifle to the next person, right? And I watched the glow. I'm like 3 people behind in line, and I'm just talking to one of my buddies, and I could watch the glow basically fade back to the finished color. And so he hands this rifle to this lady who's, you know, next in line, and she grabs it by the suppressor. So he's got it by like the handguard, and he hands it to her. Instead of her going, like, basically he had his hand at the top of the handguard far enough back that he couldn't get burnt by the gas block, right? But so far up that you couldn't get another hand in front of it, right? As a precaution, this is what a professional looks like, right? As a precaution to keep people from doing what this woman did. So the idea is that she's going to grab the handguard underneath, right? And then she'll be completely safe. Well, he happens to be like talking like this as he's handing it to her about ammo or something like that. They've been trying to get more ammo for like the last, you know, couple minutes or whatever. And she grabs hold of it while he's looking away, and she grabs hold of the suppressor that was just like forbidden popsicle hot, right? And to that woman's credit, I have no idea what her name was, but she goes, ah! Like, you ever heard the, like, sacrifice your body to save the rifle, you'll heal, the gun won't? She did not drop that rifle. She held it by the suppressor and set it against the wall, right? And I watched her, I can see this like it was slow motion. I watched her let go of it. And you ever try to like scrape bacon off of a pan before it's like fully like detached by itself, like before it's caramelized? That is what happened. And so I'm standing there, and I think, yeah, my brother was with me. Kyle was with me that year. So he's like, dude, that was nasty. So we're like looking at it, and we're like, all right, well, we just had a safety problem. So they basically broke up the line, right? So to get an incident report about a major injury on the line type thing. Las Vegas, you know, litigious, you know, what are you going to do? So anyway, we actually stopped by the guy's booth the next day, and he's got the can, and you can see the lady's fingerprints like seared onto the can. And I was like, dude, that's really cool. If I were you, I would pour that in resin and put it on my desk, right? So anyway, Elite Iron, great people, right? But I haven't talked to those folks in years. Sorry, the question was about their 22 can. That wasn't their 22 can. So anyway, I meant, okay, so this guy says, I meant plastic. Plastic is fine for 22, though. For a short period of time, garbage otherwise. It's not going to be very good. It's going to heat up pretty fast, and it's going to burn out pretty quick. So do whatever you want, man, right? Like, if you're rolling your own, you want to do that, then, like, that's on you. I think that it's like this. Right, it's like the 80% stuff. Like, you never, you don't do a lot of the 80% builds because you want it cheaper or better or any of that sort of stuff. You just do it for the sake of doing it. If you want to 3D print your own stuff, then more power to you, man, right? But I'm just going to tell you, this is not going to be very good. Just fair warning. Thoughts on the wear and tear of direct thread suppressors on a Walther PDP Pro or any handgun? Boy, do I have some things to say about the Walther PDP Pro. We'll have a video coming out about the Walther PDP Pro here soon. I'm waiting on something to come in the mail before I can finish it. But the direct thread suppressor is my preferred. And let me explain why. So for anybody who's not tracking, oftentimes what you'll see is inside of a like a QD can, you've got a blast chamber. Well, all cans are going to have a blast chamber, and then the baffle stack starts, right? Well, sometimes you'll want to use a QD attachment, and that QD attachment is going to have some kind of muzzle equipment on it, right? Either a flash hider or a muzzle brake or something like that, and that's going to suck up inside of that expansion chamber. And the idea is that provides a couple different things. It's a redirect for one, so it changes the flow characteristics for the first like couple nanoseconds or whatever. And then it also isn't blowing all the hot gas immediately right up inside the baffle stack. Some of it, a percentage of it, has to blast out into the sidewalls and reverberate and then pressurize and all that sort of stuff, right? So there is some conjecture that might save some of the wear on your suppressor. And I say, what the fuck ever, okay? Like, look, I've got some cans with tens of thousands of rounds on them. Like we're talking, I have some cans with like 50,000 rounds on them. And my opinion is that is a lot to do about nothing. And actually, it's the exact opposite of what I want. So when possible, I want a direct thread can, because going back to that expansion chamber, what happens when you stick that muzzle device in there? You deplete some of that space. So that is no longer usable space, and it's no longer usable space because it's full of metal. It's got a big piece of steel or Inconel in there. So instead of just accepting that extra space in the blast chamber, you've now filled it with something. So the whole idea of like, oh, well, this is better because it's got a muzzle to brake and it changes the direction of flow and all that sort of stuff, versus like, oh, well, why don't we just have a big open space? I would say that the two of those are probably a wash, right? I see no scientific data that seems to suggest that one is better than the other. And I would say that as far as the physics are concerned, you're better off, especially in like 30 caliber or 5.56, to just take the extra space. Same thing on, so the original question was for a handgun. They should all be direct thread. They're all going to be direct thread. You're going to direct thread into a Nielsen device on most handguns. What do you think about suppressor wraps? Suppressor wraps, love-hate relationship. Depends on the application. If you're talking about a precision rifle, you're going to need a suppressor wrap, because that's going to cut down on your Mirage. If you're shooting like a 6.5 Creedmoor or something like that, you're going to need a suppressor wrap. And unless you want to shoot like 5 rounds and stop shooting, you're going to need a suppressor wrap. Now, suppressor wraps to keep from burning yourself. I have a video on what, in my opinion, is the greatest solution for that, which is the Cryon. We did that video this year, which is basically a suppressor cage. So the problem with traditional suppressor wraps that are made out of like flame retardant material or stuff like that, the ones that are used to kill Mirage also lock heat in. So if you're not worried about locking the heat in to your suppressor and you're not worried about Mirage, then something like the Cryon creates kind of like this this heat sink that goes around it, and it gives you physical separation to keep yourself from burning yourself. And the idea is that you can sling your rifle, and it at least gives you some time to get away from it so that you're not burning yourself through your jeans. If you fire a magazine or two of 5.56 and then like at a training course or something like that and sling your rifle, that thing touches your shin, it's going to burn right through your pants. Okay. So having something like that on there to keep it off of you, good plan. The downside with those cloth ones or flame retardant material ones, like the guys from Coltac, love the dudes from Coltac. Buy that for your precision rifle, right? That thing is awesome for your precision rifle. Knocks down that that Mirage. If you're going to be running that on like a machine gun, that's not the thing that you want. Okay. Thoughts on the YHM Victa 12. So the thing about, I'm assuming that that is a 12 gauge can. The only experience I have with YHM is years ago when I was working with Silencer Shop. I got to try some of their cans. I've not gotten to use their new 12 gauge can. I'm probably not going to get to either, because every single time they hit me up to do something, I tell them like what it costs to do a project like that, and they basically act like they're so awesome that they don't need to actually participate in that program. So there's just a lot of companies that just simply will not meet the standards of my review. Like, they expect that if they're going to compensate somebody for doing evaluation on their device, that they have to have creative freedom, or excuse me, editorial control of the thing, and that's just not something that I do. So if a company has a hard line like that, then we just don't work with them, because there are plenty of companies out there that understand what it is. The reason that I'm where I'm at, and you guys trust what I say, is that I'm gonna tell you how it is, right? And I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I'm not gonna let some company say, oh, can you take this part out? Fuck that. No. Question is oil filters. I would say in the past, the concept of registering the oil filter adapter was a dumb idea, kind of memey. So there's some redeeming value to memey stuff. But given that the tax is falling off in 2026, I'm probably going to do one of those. Just have a memey thing that doesn't cost $200. Not that it would have cost me to do anything anyway, because I'm an SOT. But I think that setting that example at that time was probably bad, versus now, yeah, go ahead and do it. They're not going to be very good. Like, they're not very good suppressors. But if you want a memey gun, like, especially like if you have like, if you've got like a 357 lever gun, and you want to put like an oil filter on the front of it, and then like do like a steampunk, like post-apocalyptic build type thing, absolutely, right? That's what I want to do. Low back pressure versus high back pressure performance. I understand back pressure is harder on the rifle. Okay. I'm gonna roll my sleeves up here on this one. Before we do, though, remember that we're having a giveaway today from First Form, a value pack of their meat sticks, 4 different types of their meat sticks, 4 different types of their protein bars. Best Mondani question or comment wins the pack. It will be announced tomorrow. So go. There is no such thing as back pressure. Period. Let that sink in. These are words that are used to describe a phenomenon that somebody doesn't understand. When it comes to your can, if anybody ever mentions back pressure for what it does to your gun, they don't understand the physics of how it works, okay? Now, don't get me wrong. There is back pressure in physics, right? But it doesn't apply to your weapon. So what happens, what people are referring to, is the gas charges up the whole thing, and then it charges up your gas system, and it comes back and strikes your bolt carrier group, and then, and of course, we're talking about an AR-15 here, and then the thing reciprocates, and people are like, oh my gosh, it's so gassy because we got a lot of gas, back pressure and, et cetera, et cetera. That's not how that works, okay? That is not how that works at all. So I've done multiple videos on this, but as you increase barrel length. And you would say that putting a suppressor on the end of your gun is not quite extending the barrel length, but it's like a really shitty barrel that leaks, okay? Like if you think of the concept, now there's some leakage around the projectile and stuff like that as it's traveling down, but what causes the pressure to build in your barrel is there is a blockage in the barrel that is the projectile. There is an explosion going off behind it, and that pressure builds to a critical point, and then that is going to push that projectile down. The farther down that barrel you get, the lower the pressure. Think about it. If you measure the pressure at the chamber, it's going to be pretty high. If you measure it 6 inches down the barrel, it's going to be lower. 18 inches down the barrel, it's going to be lower, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So what would the mechanism be that we've added the suppressor to the end of the barrel, and it has somehow increased the pressure in your gas tube? It doesn't exist. That's antithetical to the way physics works. Now, what has happened is the amount of time that it's under pressure. So again, you have to think about a suppressor as sort of an extension of the barrel. Not really. It's a really shitty extension of the barrel as far as like what a barrel is supposed to do, which is capture the gas and funnel it down the barrel, right? But the amount of time or the amount of length that you have added means that the traversal of that that's not a word, traversing of that projectile through the length of that suppressor has increased the amount of time that the barrel and gas components are under pressure. So what you receive is what we call an increased dwell time. So increased dwell time equals a higher gas load on your gas system, and ultimately that will result, if we're talking about it at AR-15, we're talking about higher carrier speed. Or if we're talking about a piston gun, then we're talking about higher impulse on your piston, on your drive piston. How the suppressor impacts that is let me go back to the original question. Hang on. Low back pressure versus high back pressure performance. I understand high back pressure is harder on the rifle. So, okay. So let me complete that thought. High back pressure is not harder on, we've just dispelled back pressure does not exist when it comes to this scenario, right? Does not exist, right? What we're talking about is increased dwell time. Can increased dwell time damage your rifle? If it's not properly tuned, it can be, right? So that's why on AR-15s, typically when we're planning on running the suppressed, we have some kind of adjustable gas block. So if you want to run a suppressor that does what it's supposed to do, it's going to increase the gas load, the dwell time on your system. You can adjust that by turning down the flow through your gas block. It's 2025, almost 2026. There's no reason that we should be complaining about gas load on guns at this point in time. They're cheap. They're available. There's 1,000 different adjustable gas blocks out there. Some of them are easier to use than others. I personally really like the rifle speed gas control. There's I think we've done 2 videos on them at this point in time. Now that's a premium device. Okay, that is a premium adjustable gas block. But if you got a workhorse gun, that's your thing, right? That's the thing that you want. If you're changing environmental conditions a lot, that's the thing you want on your gun. If you're not doing something like that, then you can get away with a regular adjustable gas block. But the rifle speed gas control is a toolless setup. So when it comes to, I think that it's best to answer the next question for the lead in there, which is, don't tell me you're a high back pressure guy. Again, there's no such thing as back pressure. Well, there is a such thing as back pressure, but it doesn't apply to this scenario, right? There are a class of cans out there that are flow-through suppressors. And a flow-through suppressor has its application. If you're really concerned about the gas coming back and hitting you in the face, and you're too lazy or not technically apt enough to put an adjustable gas block on the end of your rifle, then that is the can for you, okay? The other scenario that a flow-through can is great on is a rifle that can't readily accept an adjustable gas block. So I'm a big proponent of using a flow-through suppressor on like an AK. Don't get me wrong, there are adjustable gas blocks for AKs out there, but it is not nearly as easy to adapt an AK as it is an AR. Pull the handguard off, put an adjustable gas block on it, call it a day. There's a fair amount more technical aptitude required for doing an AK adjustable gas block. There, you got to probably redo the port and you have to tune it, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that has to go into that, right? If you're trying to suppress an AK, my suggestion is that you go with a flow-through suppressor. If you're not using an AK, anything else, basically. And the reason I say that is because when a suppressor is suppressing the sound of your rifle, it has one function and one function only, and that is to capture the gas, cool it down, slow it down, and release it slowly. A can that is designed to allow that gas to not do that is not operating as optimally as it could be. So there's a trade-off. If you want less gas load on your rifle without using an adjustable gas block or something like that, and you want to let the gas flow through the can, then that can is not going to sound as good as one that will do max suppression. I'm a max suppression guy. So the question was, don't tell me that you're a high back pressure guy. Again, no such thing as back pressure when it comes to this scenario. It's a marketing term. I would rather tune my gun right and get max performance out of my suppressor than make a compromise on the performance of the device simply because I couldn't do that. Now, again, to qualify that, there are some guns that is very difficult to do on, and for that, I would recommend you use a flow-through suppressor. That was a long one, so sorry about that. Again, we have a giveaway going on with First Form. We have a value pack, 4 different types of protein bars, 4 different types of protein sticks or meat sticks, going out to one winner to win. Best Mondami comment wins. Preferential treatment towards the live chat. And of course, I can't say that. I was going to say ingest and super chats, but that would be illegal. So it's not that. Just tuned in. Hunting. Cold barrel first shot out of a suppressor should have the same 0 as cold barrel not suppressed. Thank you for your time. Absolutely not. There is going to be some kind of point of impact shift when you put the suppressor on versus when you have the suppressor off. It can be wild, and if it's wild, then that's an indicator that you got some kind of alignment problem or boring problem or caliber matchup problem, something like that. But it is likely going to be small. It might be, more than most likely, if it is properly paired, bored, and all that sort of stuff, and aligned, typically what you're going to see is the group is going to shrink. But it might move vertically a little bit. It might move horizontally a little bit. But there's going to be some point of impact shift when you put that suppressor on versus when you take the suppressor off. It's just the way that you've changed the whole characteristics of how the gas interacts with the bullet as it exits the muzzle, right? So you're going to have something. Typically, though, there's an additional stabilization factor, and usually we see those groups shrink, but they might move around a little bit, and wherever that moved around to, you should re-zero to, is what I'm saying. Make sure everything is rock set down and all that sort of stuff, but basically, once you've got it mounted, mount it hard, and then 0 to there. Wasn't somebody trying to make a barrel with an evacuator like on tanks? I'm not sure about that one. Silencer Co. Osprey. I don't have a problem with the Osprey except for this kind of like old tech. I like that Silencer Co. has gone outside the box to try to address the problem with like suppressor sights and stuff like that. It's just the concept didn't work as good as they originally thought it was going to. It doesn't have better performance than any other can, even though it's got a lot more volume. And when it auto rotates, it's really annoying because it's not cylindrical anymore. It's shaped like a box. So I guess the positive there is you will know when your suppressor is auto rotated because you'll be able to see the housing like off to the side. So just keep in mind. Let's see. Dead Air Wolverine, great suppressor for an AK. Yep. That one has some considerations for what we talked about earlier, which is like it actually has a bore that opens up because of the problems with alignment with a lot of AK stuff. So there's some considerations for AK specific cans. The other Atlas makes one as well. I actually have one, but we have not scheduled project for it. So there's that. They just one showed up, and I'm like, okay. I asked Ace. Wait, hang on. Is this a reference to another? Okay, I don't see it. Okay. Hot sauce Papa Burn. I asked Suppressor Company about speeds. I asked instead of sound, try to make a speed unsuppressed device. I don't know. I don't know what that means. Sorry. Tactical Amish guy. I'm confused. I have a 14.5 carbine length DD and an H3 buffer with a Sandman X. I have about a 2 o'clock ejection, and my eyes water with my Lazarus 6 ejection. Lazarus. I don't understand that reference. Hang on. I don't know. I'm slipping a little bit. I don't know what Lazarus 6 is. Sorry. Let me just look this up real quick. I can't know everything. Oh, hard. That's their hard use suppressor. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, sorry. I can't have it all memorized, guys. Sorry. My injection pattern changed to about 4 o'clock and no gas. Yes, that can be a thing. Is the Lazarus 6 a flow-through can? It doesn't look like a flow-through design. But I'm not saying that it isn't. I'm not familiar with this one. I haven't talked to Mike Pappas in a long time about this. It says gas management system with exceptional acoustic performance, minimal back pressure. I'm leaning towards it being a flow-through can. Again, I'm skeptical of that one. I've never met a flow-through design that I actually like. How do you recommend cleaning aluminum cans? I have a Q Erector, which is a hilarious can, by the way. Do love that can. And wonder how to avoid damaging the finish over time and not creating a bunch of toxic waste. If I can avoid it, I suggest you clean it with soap and water. That's how I suggest that you clean it. Do not use an ultrasonic cleaner on that, because the aluminum does not do well on ultrasonic cleaners. It can really fuck up the finish. It can also, depending on the grade of aluminum, create microchanneling, which can weaken it long term. Take your Erector. Sun's going down. I'm starting to get from my plague from my wife. Sorry, guys. Soap and water, soak in soap and water, and that's it. And maybe hit it with a brush, clean it that way. First-time buyer, a recommendation for a first-time buyer for 22 or 223. Daniel Woodworth, you are going to have to comment again and ask, clarify your question. Do you mean for a 22 can, or for a 22 rifle or pistol, or for a 223? Those are two different types of cans. So 45 ACP isn't as good suppressed because of the limited size for pistol cans. What about 45 ACP PCCs versus 9mm PCCs? Diameter is no longer an issue. Lethality of 300 Blackout subs versus 9mm 45 lethality. Okay, so there's a lot packed in that one. 45 ACP. I did a whole video on why 45 ACP sucks suppressed, even though that it's subsonic. Everybody should go watch that video, right? But the PCCs still suffer from the same problem. Not just the volume or the size of the can, but the input from the weapon, being a 45 ACP, is just louder. So even if you had the same reduction factor, which you're not going to, because you get ultimately less can because of the function of volume, bore diameter difference, and all that sort of stuff. Functionally less can. Even if you got the same suppression factor, it would still be louder because the input of 45 ACP is louder than 9mm subsonic. And 9mm subsonic is cheaper than 45 ammo. So if you want something that is going to perform very well suppressed and is going to do, if you're looking for something in the class of a 45 that is going to give you way more performance, you hit the nail on the head already, which is 300 Blackout subs. Use a 220 grain sub that's 10 grains off of a 45 ACP. It's going a little bit faster because it's going to be doing about 1,000 feet per second. And you can use a more efficient design in a 30 cal can. You're also going to have a better ballistic coefficient. And I would also say better bullet design. Like your access, like a radical hollow point in a 300 Blackout is far superior to 45 ACP round. Is it January 1st yet? I'm trying to get there. Thoughts on suppressing a Ruger LC carbine in 10mm was shown rugged obsidian today. Yeah, that's a prime example of where you would use a 45 can is a 10mm. 10mm is going to be loud. It's going to be louder than 45 ACP because it's going to be a supersonic round. But given that it is in a carbine, all carbines are going to be kind of like less on their performance because almost all of the even 45 ACP barrels over 10 inches sometimes go over the sound barrier with stock ammo, right? So keep that in mind. When you go to a rifle, you're just going to expect a supersonic crack, unless you're doing something specific, which is 300 Blackout subsonics. Even my like high point 45 carbine goes over the sound barrier periodically. And again, that is very dependent on the environmental conditions outside. So, sauce Papa Burn. I don't understand what you're getting at. And he says, so in response to you, speeds can differ 60 plus feet per second. So if you make a suppression device that is dedicated to pick up speeds over distance, bullets do not pick up speeds over distance. Bullets lose speed over distance. We're not talking about rockets. Rockets pick up speed over distance. What do you think about PLA cans? I'm assuming that you mean 3D printed cans, and my opinion is that they're garbage and you should buy a real one. Should I continue to use my single shot trust so I can add, subtract people as I see fit when I want or start a traditional trust and add all my cans under one trust? I'm not an attorney, but this is how I would do it if I want to play the trust game, if I were you, okay? I would use your single shot trust or file as an individual to get your stuff. I would probably lean towards file as an individual. And then for your party of people that you want to be able to access this, you should transfer them from yourself as an individual or your single shot trust to another trust that they have access to. And the reason that is you can possess the item and use it and all that sort of stuff while you wait for the processing of the trust paperwork. Because the problem with a trust is every single trustee on the trust has to fill out the paperwork and submit it whenever it moves. So if you do the filing yourself or as a single shot trust with one user on it, then there's one set of paperwork that you got to file. And before, that was prohibitively expensive because then you'd have to pay the additional $200 tax each time that moves. So you'd have to pay the tax to get it, then you have to pay the tax to move it. Well, now with the tax going away, now it's just shuffling paperwork. So do it, get it in your possession, then and use it, and then file the paperwork to move it to your trust that's got all your friends and family on it, right? That's how I would suggest that you do it. And then get like a DocuSign account so that you can have folks do that quickly. Because I don't know, that sounds like a lot of extra work. I just buy all my stuff on individual. And I suggest most people buy them on their individual. Now, NFA trusts, in my opinion, like if you've got like some really expensive machine guns or something like that, yeah, you need to protect those things from probate court. So those need to be on an NFA trust. As far as your suppressors are concerned, If you got a bunch of like teenage kids that you want to have access to them, okay, yeah, cool. Your buddies, tell them to go get their own. First can for 22, what would you get? Okay, so that was Daniel Woodworth. That was his clarification on that initial question. I would say really good cans are if you want a really rugged can, my go-to for 22 is the Icon from Bowers Group. If you want something that's a little bit lighter than that, then the lightest 22 can that is like rugged built that I'm aware of is the one that we did earlier this year, which is the Fletcher Works device. Excellent cans. Yeah. There's also, like, if you want something really Gucci, there's the Elevated Silence one. I really like that one. That's kind of a modular can, so you can do short or long on that one. Somebody says, Sarita Morales says, I'm learning to make my own homemade 45. Yeah, don't do that. Yeah, something about armor piercing hollow point 45. That doesn't make any sense. Distance of the cans. I don't know what you mean by distance of the cans. There's no such thing as the distance of the can. A suppressor will add muzzle velocity by 30 to 60 feet per second. Oh, okay. I think I see what you're saying. Maybe. It depends. It very strongly depends on that. It can add 30 to 60 feet per second if you've got incomplete powder burn. Right? So if you're talking about using like a short-barreled rifle, then yeah, it's going to increase your velocity by 30 to 60 feet per second. Sometimes even more. But if you're talking about putting it on the end of like a long-barreled 6.5 Creedmoor, you're not gonna see that. Nope. Which works better for an AR platform 16-inch barrel, pistol length, or carbine length gas system? Carbine is better than pistol. But that's subjective. It depends on the way the gun is set up. Like, it really depends on how the gun is set up, whether it's got an adjustable gas block or, you know, all that sort of stuff, whether it's suppressed. Like, there's a whole bunch of things. What is the caliber? Like, but generally speaking, if you're talking about a 5.56 gun unsuppressed, then you're going to get better performance out of a carbine length gas system than a pistol length gas system. With your background in chemistry, do you think plastic cans will ever be a thing? Well, they currently are a thing, and they suck. So, no. I mean, maybe. The problem, here's the thing. So, the problem is that you're talking about a carbon lattice versus an iron or titanium or aluminum lattice. So it's just not the closest that you're going to get is something like carbon fiber. But remember, carbon fiber isn't just carbon fiber. It's got a structure in it that allows it to be rigid. So it's not just, you could technically consider that plastic. So, I mean, you can, but there's other stuff that has to be done to make that work. And PLA sucks. So everybody says PLA. No, it's done. It's a dumb idea. Any advice on Whip Machine Dirty 30? I just ordered one for my 300 AAC. The Dirty 30, let me refresh my memory really quick. I've done all of Whip Machine's stuff, and it's just been a while. So this one is okay. So this is going to be so the thing about a K configuration 30 caliber suppressor, which is what the Whip Machine Dirty 30 is it's going to be a little bit louder, but it's going to be a very rugged device. Okay, so just keep that in mind. You should not expect whisper quiet performance out of that can. But if you're shooting 300 Blackout subsonics, then you're going to get pretty good performance. It will be hearing safe and all that sort of stuff. It is, I think of the Whip Machine cans in that weight class as like a really, really awesome muzzle brake that is designed to take a little bit of the edge off and reduce the recoil. That's how I think about those devices. Not all suppressors need to be quiet. I think that the question is, do you think PLA or carbon fiber is best for home printed cans? I think that home printed cans are a dumb idea and that you should not do that. I think you should do something else. Like if you look, like I said a little bit ago, if that's what you do for fun, then go for it, man. Right? Like some people collect stamps for fun. Okay. You do you, but I'm just telling you this is not going to be very good. Will goats become more popular in New York City now? Speaking of that, we have a giveaway going on. We're a little bit over time, so I'm going to plug this one more time, and then we're going to answer a few more questions, and we'll get out of here. We have a giveaway going on with First Form. In the pinned comment up here, you can find a link. Use that link. It tells them that I sent you. If you buy anything, it generates commissions to the channel. We have a giveaway going on with them today. 4 of their meat sticks, 4 of their protein bars. Best Momdani comment wins. Winner announced tomorrow, and I'll send that stuff out to you. Go. Preferential treatment towards live chat. Let's see here. Yes. So like somebody Hot Sauce Papa Burn says Destin from Smart Every Day did the clear cans. And they did that specifically for the purposes of being able to see what happens inside the can. They were a one-time use thing. They were there for the purposes of, like, again, lasting for the nanoseconds of time that the bullet is moving through the suppressor and the suppressor is being pressurized. They were doing it for pictures. It's completely different applications. Yeah. Metal 3D printers, I've covered this already, admonishing people, again, for PLA and carbon fiber 3D printing. Direct laser-centered 3D printed cans are still expensive. The devices are expensive. The way that they work is they basically have an alloy that is blown around, and it's a fine dust alloy, and it's basically blown around, and then the laser comes and basically melts it, and it additively manufactures that way. It's fantastic stuff. It's awesome, right? But think about constantly welding metal to a thing is how that works versus squirting a hot glue gun onto a thing. Big difference. Are you a prepper? I'm not going to answer that I'm not going to answer that. Thank you. That is a personal question. First-time buyer for a 5.56 12.5. Is there an appreciable difference in flash suppression between a K can and full size? Yes, there will be. Absolutely. Absolutely, there will be. Asking about Whip Machine just because I moved to Texas and they're here. I really like the guys from Whip Machine. The last time I spoke to the people from Whip Machine was I got a text from them today at 4 p.m. So there you go. So since this live stream started, and it's YouTube related, so I'm going to have to actually call him at the end of this live stream to figure out something. I'm going to have to ask him I'm going to have to help him out. Excellent people at Whip Machine. Anyway. So So is New York going to be adding an AK to their flag now? All right, guys. So anyway, I think we've run this long enough. We are sitting at just under an hour and a half. So successful live stream today. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'm gonna go figure out what's going on with my boy over at Whip Machine. He's got some kind of problem that he has to resolve, and it looks like I'm the guy that's gonna fix it. So anyway, you guys have a great rest of the weekend. I'm glad that I was able to make it through this one with only one episode dealing with the plague that I've contracted from my wife. She is currently pregnant and cannot take a whole lot of meds. So like it's kind of gotten out of control. Question is, First Form has some good protein. Have I never tried anything else of theirs? I have like all their different flavors of protein. But the ones that I use the most are their protein bars and their meat sticks, because they're so convenient to throw into a bag and just go. That's the stuff that I use. So anyway, I will probably be ill tomorrow, so we will not be having a live stream tomorrow. This is going to take the space of that. So I thank you guys very much for tuning in today, even though it's Saturday. It's just, I wanted to be able to get this in, and probably not going to be able to tomorrow. So anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. Hopefully we'll see you